So I have this meeting with Kevin Lyles, Russell Simmons, and Leor Cohen. So I get called up to the office, and I'm in Leor Cohen's green room. And these are the guys who created Def Jam. Like these are
Right. Yeah.
legends in the game, right? I'm in the green room. I'm just waiting, and I hear people going into the other room, and like almost immediately, it's a shouting match in the other room, dude. I'm like, what is
Right.
going
What's
on?
what's happening here? Alrighty, yo, yo, yo. Welcome back, my podcast people. Welcome back to Chronicles. Man, it is episode 17. I know on last episode, I talked about how we hit that 16-week mark, which is 4 months. We're going ahead and pushing past that with a great episode for you today. As you can see, we have a guest. This is my uncle, really my cousin. I call him my uncle. Definitely a close bond here. His name is Dr. Marcus Collins, and I'll let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Thank you so much for having me, Cameron. I don't know where to begin. I'm Marcus Collins. I consider myself sort of an academic practitioner. I have my foot in the world of academia as an assistant clinical professor of marketing at the Ross School of Business, University of Michigan. Go Blue! But I'm also a practitioner where I'm the chief strategy officer, head of planning at Wieden Kennedy, New York. So I get to put ideas in the world as an advertiser and put people in the world as an academic, which I think is just like the dopest job to have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of the skinny, right? I mean, I'm a product of Detroit, which I feel is very much a very much a driver of who I am, how I see the world, and ultimately how I show up in the world.
Right, right, right. Of course. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that. I think it's really interesting that you do have a career in marketing because I know you as the music guy. I knew you as the music guy growing up, and that's just what you did. Uncle Marcus was great at music. And when I from when I was really young, I was like, okay, he's gonna have a career in whatever kind of music he makes. And so that transition to advertising and marketing was definitely not a shock, but it was interesting. It was different, and obviously you succeeded, beyond all measures in that career path. So I noticed you mentioned about your Wieden and Kennedy gig. I know you just uh, recently got hired there. If you could tell us a little bit about more what you do there and yeah, the ins and outs of that job.
Yeah, so Wieden Kennedy is traditionally thought of as an advertising agency. It's been around for what 32 years now. It's responsible for some of the biggest ads in the world, i.e., "Just Do It" by Nike,
Hmm.
"Open Happiness" for Coca-Cola.
Right, right, yeah.
Most recently, the Travis Scott partnership with McDonald's. We just did
Hmm.
BTS last month. And the while we might be referred to as an advertising agency, advertising is just sort of one of the things that we do. At the
Hmm.
core, we are a culturally led cultural impact company. Just so happen to make ads. We're pretty good at that, right?
Right,
But
right, right.
we make cultural product, right? We put things in the world that people use to self-identify. And there I run strategy. I run how we make meaning of the world and find congruence between what our brands stand for, what their points of view are, their convictions, and who are the right people to go after where there is congruence between what the brand is all about and what people are all about, so that people not only consume but tell people like themselves about it and begins to propagate across the network graph.
Right. Yeah, that's that's a lot. That's definitely I have been trying to do my research on, Wieden and Kennedy, and you kind of mentioned the small little knowledge that I had about the company in terms of the major ads that they have done recently. I thought that it's very interesting because people don't realize who is behind those ads. It's kind of just this was a great campaign and this really blew up, but why was that? Why what was the planning that went into that ad that made this thing such a big commodity around the world? It's one thing to throw a celebrity like Travis Scott into um a commercial, but to have the success of, that meal with Travis Scott, which was, has never been seen before. That isn't just throwing a celebrity in front of a screen. And so I definitely want to get into more about the planning and all that goes into advertising, but I want to walk up to that point.
Okay.
So I'm going to I'm going to ask you to basically don't rush through this. I just want you to tell the story of how you got to where you were. I know I mentioned earlier in the podcast, just a few minutes ago about music. I know that's still a big part of your life, but how you went from being interested in these things to a phenomenal career in advertising and marketing.
Sure thing. Glad to do it. So, like I said, from Detroit, born and raised. And if you asked me as a kid what I wanted to do, I'd tell you I wanted to be Michael Jackson, period. Hands down. Like I wanted to do music. I was like I said, I was a music guy,
Right.
sang in church when I was younger, played a little piano in church, but like I was always in a choir, I was always performing, played in band. Like I was always facilitating myself in music. And I
Hmm.
never saw a world that existed where I wasn't doing that. And when I went to high school, I went to Cass, of course, holla. And I sang and singing groups there, performed a lot. But when it was time to graduate and go to college, it was kind of like, all right, that was like extracurricular stuff. Like this
Right.
is real life now. Like, come on,
Yeah.
fam, this is real life. That was
Right.
fun and exciting. Those are things that you write in your application to get you to school. Now we go to school, you're thinking about the career. And
Right.
I sort of
Mhm.
bought into that. I'd always excelled in math and science. I did like summer engineering academies every summer when I was in high school, and did
Mhm.
DAPSAP, Detroit area pre-college engineering program. So I was like, engineering makes sense for me, right? It
Right.
makes a lot of sense. And of all the engineering disciplines, I thought that materials engineering was kind of cool, because
Hmm.
in one of the summer programs I was at, they had this career fair where all these different sort of engineers were there kind of showing off what it means to
Right. Right.
be them. And one guy from NASA was there, and he had a piece of a space shuttle, and he had the piece of the space shuttle, and he put a blowtorch behind one piece, and like it's like turning red, like it's hot. And he's like, touch the other side. I'm like, I ain't touch the other side. He goes,
Right.
no,
Right.
touch the other side. And I, hesitantly touch the other side, and it was cool. And I was like, that's amazing. He was like, that's what I do for a living. And I was like, that sign me up. That's cool. I want to do
Right.
that.
Right.
So applied to University of Michigan, College of Engineering, to study materials engineering. My first year of undergrad completely kicked my butt. Like it was embarrassingly kicked my butt. And in high school, like I have a plaque in my parents' house that's like top 5% of all Detroit students. I was of that. Like I was like crushing it.
In high school in Cass Tech.
Murdered the game.
Yeah.
Murdered.
Right. Right.
I get to undergrad, it's like, oh, you're an idiot, fam. Like
Right.
I was like the dumbest person like, at the University of Michigan, man. It kicked my butt, and I realized I didn't know how to study.
Right. Yeah.
I was like fast. I was able to pick up things quickly and deduce things
Mhm.
quickly, but I didn't have any like discipline. But I didn't know that then. I just
Right.
thought
Yeah.
maybe engineering isn't for me. And I went home that summer. And I was like, mom, dad, I don't know if I want to do engineering. And my mother, who is an academic, and she goes, wait till you get into your major. You will love
Right.
it.
Right.
You'll
Right.
love it. And
Yep.
I
The
go,
old spiel.
okay, mom, I trust you. You're a doctor. You know that you got your doctorate. You know this
Right.
better than I do. I trust you, mom. So I go into my second year, my sophomore year, and I'm taking classes in my discipline, and I do not love it. No, 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 no. And it's
Right.
and it's not that it wasn't interesting. It
Mhm.
was interesting. I just wasn't interested. And I
Hmm.
was like, this is cool, but like I don't want to invest myself in this. And my
Is that
GPA,
is that because you found it interesting, but you didn't wanna invest yourself in that at that time? Is it something that you felt at that moment that you wanted to go back to after you pursued something else? Or was it, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Or
I understand the question. Yeah, I think it was that the light at the end of the tunnel didn't seem compelling to me, right? Like
fair
when you're
enough.
taking classes, especially fundamental courses, it's all very abstract, right? Like you're learning foundational things. Like
Mhm.
when would I ever need to apply knowledge about grain boundaries. I mean, it's like, what are you
Right.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It just
Totally
it
agree.
didn't really make a lot of sense to me as far as like what the career trajectory was. When I
Hmm.
saw other materials engineers, they did like packaging it at like Dow Chemical, or
Oh
they were
wow.
doing like product at 3M. And I was like, I don't know if I
Right.
want to do that. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
like
Is
they were
that what
like
I want to do
making
for the
like
rest of my life?
the composite for like bumpers on cars. And I was like, I don't know, fam. Like, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the it, you know? I just didn't
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
myself
I
doing
get
that, you
that.
know?
Yeah.
And there were people, and I think what was interesting is that people who were in the program were like super jazzed about doing that. And I was like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah. Nah.
I'm not there.
That's
Like,
not
I'm
for
not,
me. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, it's not for me. You know, so my GPA is struggling.
Hmm.
And I'm used to like doing really well. Some like that was a hard thing for me to sort of battle with.
Right.
It was like it's identity thing. Like, am I dumb? And I just didn't,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
wow,
Yep.
maybe
Yep.
I'm just stupid. And like these people are just smarter than I am because everybody was getting it faster than me.
Right.
So I took some music theory courses just to offset my horrible GPA. And it was the first time I could remember being excited about learning.
Hmm.
Like I was like super excited about learning modal mixtures. And I remember falling in love with major sevenths. And I was like, this,
Wow.
like, it felt so familiar, but yet new. It was like so inviting. Um, it just felt right.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
was doing well. Like I took a theory course, I took a composition course, and then got like a B plus and an A, which I wasn't getting at all in any
Right.
other
Right. Right. Any other thing?
classes. And I was excited about it. Like when I
Yeah.
did poorly on something in the school of music, like I wanted to get better. I was like applying myself to it. And like I bought like a little synthesizer. I bought a computer. My parents bought it rather. I begged
Yeah.
them to do it. And actually, no, I did buy the computer myself because I was working that summer. And like I'm like writing music. It's awful. It's horrible music, but I'm like so excited. I'm applying the stuff from school directly to the music, like to the application.
Hmm.
And I just like it clicked for me. I was like, this is what I want to do. This
Right.
is it right here. I'm not great at it right now, but I know that I can totally invest myself in this. So I
Hmm.
went home after the summer of my sophomore year, and like mom and dad, like man, it's like I'm like Moses coming down from the mountaintop with two stone tablets. Like, oh, I'm about to rock your
This
world.
is
Like I
right.
know
Right.
it.
Right. You're not ready for this.
Yeah, I'm about to declare it, dude. I'm going to declare it. And I'm like, yo, mom, dad, like, I think I want to know what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like what I want to do for my career. My parents
Hmm.
are like, cool, like tell us.
Right.
I was like, yo, I want to be a songwriter. They're like, oh no, you don't.
Oh, I
That's
can
not
only
true.
imagine that. I can only
Dude, it
imagine
was
that.
like, are you serious? Like, man, the look on my parents' faces were like, what? And I was like, I want to
Right.
write music. And man, we had it out. It was like a good like 2 to 3 hour like back and forth
Yeah.
and respectfully, right? But it was like a back
Right.
and
Right.
forth.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
And yeah, right? Man, I had this, I remember this so vividly from that conversation. Like, I'm almost raising my voice. And I'm like, I was like, but like, what if Quincy Jones discovers me and he signs me? And my mother says, like, straight up,
Mhm.
I don't care if Jesus Christ signs you, it ain't happening. Like
Oh, man.
that's where it was. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, and I felt I was disappointed.
Mhm.
Um, I felt unsupported, and I felt like misunderstood.
Right.
And I was like, all right, okay. And the parents like, yo, you're finishing that engineering degree. So I go, okay, but when I'm done, can I just like try to do this music thing? And my mother's like, yo, my parents both were like, fine, try it, but like finish that engineering degree. And that was
Right,
sort of
right.
the contract, right? The contract was
Mhm.
that I would do engineering, right? But I'm going to pursue the music thing afterwards, right? And I guess in my
Right.
mother's mind, my father's more like, yo, you got to do what makes you happy if you're going to be successful.
Mhm.
An entrepreneur. So his mind has always been like, yo, you got to go after the thing that you're really excited about if you're going to be good at it. My
Right.
mother's much more traditional. She's like, no, you got to like go through the ranks. You get a degree, then you go
Right.
to work,
Right,
another
right.
degree, you go
Yeah,
to
yeah,
work.
yeah.
Like, and it's my mother's philosophy. So it was like, get the degree, and then let's figure it out afterwards.
Mhm.
So I spend my entire undergrad years basically phoning it in on the academic side. And by
Wow.
basically, I mean 120% phoning it
Right,
in.
right.
So much so that like, so some of my professors, especially engineering, I would go to them like after the first day of class and like, hey, all I need is a C out of this class.
I remember you
That's it.
telling me that. Yeah.
That's it. Like that's all I need is a C. And that's all you're gonna get out of me. And they're kind of
Mhm.
like, word. I'm like, word.
Right.
That's all I
Yeah.
got. Well, sometimes I got an F. I had to go redo the class. Like, I'm just so I mean,
Yeah.
it like the narrative in my head, it made sense. Like I was like, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm really good at this other thing, this music thing. So
Right.
I'm going to do this. And of course, my grades are going to suck because I'm not good at it. Right. And in some
Right.
cases, I
Yeah,
felt
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I was like, this isn't for me. I'm doing this for my parents. And like, I literally
Right.
was like, this is for my mom. I'm doing this for my mom. And my mom would send me cards, send me notes, and be like, dude, straight up. Like, it was so manipulative. Like, she was like, your grandfather is only living to see you graduate. Like, I wish I had copies of those cards still. It was so manipulative. But she sent me that, right? Like to
Yeah.
keep me focused, if you will. So I graduate right after 9/11, and the market is horrible, awful.
Yeah.
Like it's just awful. And for me, this is God talking to me. Like God,
Like
like he's like, oh, I'm opening this up
songwriting
for
is
you.
the thing.
Exactly. Exactly. Like God's like, oh, I got you, fam. I'm gonna knock down these
Right.
towers right quick so you can go get a verse with this. Like
Oh
that's what's going on
man.
in my head, man.
Right,
Like,
right.
I'm like, won't he do it? Won't he do it?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm like, this is like the divine sign for me to like pursue music. Right. This is like, yo, like people who were smarter than me, who did better in school than I did, who had
Mhm.
all the right internships, they their jobs got rescinded. They were like working at Macy's, no knock at Macy's, but that's not what they went to
Mhm.
school for. And I'm
And
like,
I
yo,
I want to make a point on that. That
go
I mean,
for it.
that's a really man, that's something that I haven't been able to testify to because it hasn't necessarily happened to my generation or to the people that I'm close in age, 3 to 4 years out.
Yeah.
There's the whole thing that any other path, that is not college it's always, what if the end of the world happened? What
Yeah.
if you got to be prepared for X, Y, Z, all, everything. You have to be prepared for the end of the world, right? But when you're going to college, it's like, oh, you're just gonna float by, you're gonna get a job 100%. Like it's just like, oh, this is a halo,
That's right. That's right.
and
That's
my
right.
my thing is if you're gonna play the whole game of the end of the world with this, road, you have to play it with college as well.
That's
And
right.
in your case, you saw that, that was the quote unquote end of the world. People
Yeah.
that spent thousands of dollars on education to then work a job that they thought was going to give them success, they were working at Macy's for the time being,
That's
and
right.
so you couldn't predict that, and obviously it might not have been the greatest, road for music at that time either, but the whole thing is, or the whole point would be that you can't predict, where you're gonna be even with this degree. And while yes, in society it still holds true that a degree, has a lot of meaning behind it, it still isn't 100%, guaranteed that you're gonna get a job in whatever field you graduate in, or that it's gonna be easy for you to just get employed.
That's
So
right.
I just wanted to make a point for those people I've had debates with, but also for those those content creators out there that are, just thinking about kind of doing something similar to what you did in terms of
Yeah,
getting the degree, but also, making sure they're putting all their focus, or a lot of focus on their craft and what they want to do,
that's right.
because that's what makes them happy. But yeah.
And so I concur with that. And the interesting part about that, I take it one step further and say, man, like nothing is guaranteed.
Mhm.
Nothing. Yo,
True.
like there's no guarantees. Like everything is a calculated risk, right? Like everything
Mhm.
is a we take the information that we have, we try to make the best decisions, but like nothing's
Right.
guaranteed. I mean, the interesting part about this, the irony of this is that while the world has seemed to be sort of in shambles post 9/11, the music industry was having its best years ever. Now, dig this. So the highest grossing years for music
Mhm.
was 99, 2000, and 2001.
Wow.
Highest grossing years ever in the music industry.
I did not know that.
I graduated in 2002, right? So like, right,
Mhm.
like it's like when I'm pursuing this thing, like music is
Right.
crushing. What happens 3 years later, 2004? The record industry gets punched in the face
Yeah.
by peer-to-peer sharing, right? Like it started in the late 90s, but it really
Right.
hit a peer pitch in 2004, 2005. So
Mhm.
even when you're at the top, man, everybody can get touched.
Right.
Like
Yeah. Yeah,
everybody can
yeah.
get touched, right?
Yep.
So the idea then is it's you hedge your bets on where you think you have the most opportunity, or
Right.
you try to find a way to bricolage to put more together.
Mhm.
So so I graduated in 2002, should have been 2001, but GPA had to retake some classes. So I graduated in 2002, and I do an internship at Universal Music Group.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, like they came to campus because they come to the comms the School of Communications at University of Michigan. They came to campus. I'm not a comms major. I'm an engineer, and I don't have any comms experience, but I
Right.
do have a demo that I've been recording. I mean, I spent like my time in school, those years of undergrad, I was either in class writing songs in class, or in class at the School of Music,
Mhm.
or in the recording studio at Michigan. Like
Man.
then, I did my social life too, but like
Right, right,
that's where I
right,
spent
right.
most of my time. Like I was like, I had a home
Mhm.
studio, then there was a studio at the School of Music, and then there was a recording studio in the
Wow.
media union. And dude, I was just trying to perfect my craft. So when people
Right.
were out
Yeah.
partying, I'm like, oh, B, I'm writing a song. Like
Yeah.
I'm working, I'm getting reps going. So when Universal Music came to campus to do recruitment for the internship program, like I didn't have a resume, but I had a demo. So
Mm.
when they're in line dropping resumes, I was like, here's my demo, holla at me.
Wow.
Yeah,
There
like
you
I was like,
go.
man, I
There
was
you go
feeling
for a
myself.
boss move, you know?
I was feeling myself. You gotta shoot your shot, right? So
Yeah.
they called back, was like, yo, this is actually really good. Like,
Wow.
wow, like, yo, do you want an internship? I'm like, absolutely.
Right, right, of course.
Totally. So I do the internship. In my mind, I'm like, I'm about to be puffy. Like I want to walk in, I'm about to be like, here's this guy, Marcus. He got the best ideas ever. Marcus, come sit at the table
Right.
and make all the that's my mind. That's my
Right,
mind.
right, yeah.
Right. And I get there, it's like, go get some coffee, fam. go, go make copies. I mean, like literally, the majority of my job at Universal was making bin cards. And
Hmm.
bin cards seem like not even like a like archaic language today. But when you go to like a mom and pop record store and you're
Mhm.
like searching for CDs, there was like the title of the artist. I make those.
And that's wow. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And we used to do these contests with mom and pop stores. So the album that I worked on was Nellyville,
Mhm.
Nelly's Nellyville. So we did like a promotion for the mom and pop store who did the best version of Nellyville in their store. It's like they
Okay.
made Nellyville in their store. Like that's what I
Hmm.
did. I
Alright.
did that. And when the artist came to town, uh, I helped put posters up on the wall when they were at the venue.
Wow.
Far from Diddy, like
Right,
far
right,
from.
right, right.
And I was like,
Not
this ain't
what
for
you
me, man. I mean, I'm like, I got these great ideas. Now I'm making hit records over here that were not hit by any stretch. But I was like, yo, I'm up here crushed. I got beats for days,
Right,
dog. Like,
right, right, right.
like, y'all sleeping on your boy. So I decided to come back to Ann Arbor, and I ran a recording studio for one of my professors in the School of Music. He had
Okay.
Studio A, I ran Studio B, and I started recording my own stuff. Like in the studio, I like my own studio. There's paid sessions that I had to run, but after that,
Mhm.
I would call my friends up from Detroit to come in, let's record. Right
Wow.
now, I'm just like getting better and better at the craft, just like constantly getting better.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, yo, let me start pitching some music to people. And I realized very quickly I wanted anything to do with the business side. Like I felt like it was stifling my creativity.
Yeah,
So
I
I
hear you.
thought, right. So
Yeah, 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 I hear you. Yeah.
I thought, I need a partner. I need someone who I trust implicitly, and
Right.
someone who, when
That's
they
huge.
walk in the room, everyone goes, who's that guy? Like I needed someone like that. He was going to be my manager. He was going to take care of all the business side. I take care of all the music side. And
Mhm.
there was a guy who came to mind immediately as like one of my dearest friends, a guy named Mike Muse. Mike
Hmm.
Muse, like me, was an engineer who didn't like engineering. And he was a year ahead of me. So he was displaced after 9/11. He had a gig. I don't know where I think he was going to go to Ernst and Young. So going to Ernst and Young for a consultancy, and that got rescinded. So he was doing like a call center at American Express in Florida. He didn't
Right.
like it.
Wow.
So I called up Mike. Was like, yo, Mike, I'm doing this thing. I want you to hear this demo. I'm shopping my demo to everybody, basically.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
here's my demo. I want
Right.
you to buy this book. And I'm coming to Florida in 2 weeks to go visit my brother because Eugene was living in Sanford and he was in Orlando. Mike's in Orlando. I was like,
Mhm.
let's have lunch. I want to talk to you about this venture I have in mind. So he buys the book, listens to music. 2 weeks later, Mike and I have lunch, a 3-hour lunch, and we decide to start a record company. I
Wow.
fly back to Detroit, and then Mike quits his job at Amex and moves to Detroit a month later, and we start what is known now as Muse Recordings. What
Wow.
started as like a production company where we were like shopping music, and we got some stuff placed. Like we did some stuff with D12, did a
Mhm.
remix with John B that never got released. I did a remix for Miss Dynamite, who was an artist in the UK who was trying to come over here to the States. Like
Mm.
little bitty stuff that never
Right. Yeah.
really cracked. Like we had an artist that was about to get signed to J Records, and that fell apart. Just like all these like really close calls, but nothing ever really materialized
Mhm.
until we decided to like kind of acting like a record label. Let's just be a record label, and like
Yeah.
we're gonna sell albums out of our trunk. We're gonna do it masterpiece style. Like
Right. Right.
we're
Yeah.
just gonna go at it, right? Like not
Yeah.
try to like make it look too fancy, but just kind of do it.
Mhm.
So we signed all the artists that we were like recording demos with. They became our artists, and we decided to record an album called Mark's Project, which is gonna be a compilation for the label. And
Mhm.
we didn't have a lot of money. We raised some capital, not a whole bunch, and we didn't have any really good ideas on how to launch it. But we had one idea,
Hmm.
and it was that the University of Michigan has a crazy alumni network, right?
Right. Yep.
And we were, humbly speaking, we were kind of popular when we were on campus, right? We had friends, people knew who
Right.
we
Right.
were.
Right. Right. Connections.
I
Yeah.
would give it Mike more so than me, but together we were a pretty dynamic duo. And one thing about University of Michigan is that homecoming is like not a very celebratory moment for Michigan. There's no like
Mhm.
homecoming festivities. There's a game.
Right.
There's no like parades or nothing like that. So
Right.
our mind was like, yo, what if we actually sponsored the programming for Michigan's homecoming and we used that as a way to launch the album. That's
Wow.
the only idea we had. It was like,
Yeah.
do it. So we programmed the entire weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday, we did a party for Diddy's, go back to Diddy's, Sean Combs Vote or Die campaign, because it was a big voting year, 2004.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
Bush. What's his name? Totally forget his name at the moment. Good grief. That's how forgettable he was. After Gore, it was that guy. Anyway, it'll come to mind. Anyway,
Yeah.
that dude, right? So we did it. We did a party, a vote or die party at Starbucks. This is 2004. It's like throwing a
Wow.
party at Starbucks is kind of sexy, right? It's kind of sexy.
Yeah.
So we do a party at Starbucks on Friday night. Saturday, we host a tailgate at Pizza House. Is like a staple in Ann Arbor. We host a tailgate. We had Nelly do a drop for us for Michigan versus Ohio State. Like all these like really cool
Wow.
things happening.
Yeah.
We brought John B to campus because we were doing some work with him. So we brought John B to campus to do a concert that night. Our artist opened up for John B. Then on Sunday, the next day, John B did a meet and greet, sign meet and greet on Sunday.
Wow.
Great. It was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome. Friday night party at Starbucks completely crushes it, dude.
All right.
Like
All right.
crushed. Like it was the Starbucks is on Liberty State Street, 2 floors. We packed out both floors, and they like ran out of product at Starbucks. And fortunately for us, the VP of sales for the region was there because it was a big hoopla, which is another story for another day. But she was there, and she was like, "Yo, who are you all?" And we're like, "We're Mike and Marcus, we're starting a record company." Yada, yada.
Right.
And she's like, "Yo, this is crazy. Like, what are you guys doing next? Like, what's the next move for you all?" I was
Right.
we're thinking about going on tour. We're thinking about, whatever support. No, sorry. We said, "Yo, we're doing an album release party at the Yacht Club in Detroit." And she was like, "Yo, how do we be a part of that?" We were like, "You could write a check."
Right.
And they were like, "Hey, we're actually opening a store on Jefferson right before you go to Belle to the yacht club. Let's be a part of it. We'll be there. We'll have a booth there. And we were like, sweet. Now Starbucks has sponsored
That's
our
I
record
mean,
release
that's
party.
gotta be just that's gotta be a mind-boggling moment for the both of you all. Like that's gotta be is that the one of the moments that where it was like, okay, this can be something that I can actually sustain or
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like those and the thing is, there's so many of those little moments
right.
that you're like, dude, it's like you're on like you're like like it's about to break, like it's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
to
yeah.
break. And like it's like the Eminem song, lose yourself. You only get one chance to blow because so everything you think about is like
Right.
that one chance. But
Yeah.
truth of the matter is, it's more of an alchemy. It's an aggregate of little chances that
Mhm.
together become the thing that tips. And we had so many of those little things. So we had this release party, yacht club, really successful, turned out really well. It was great. We were really happy with it. And then Starbucks says, "So what are y'all doing next?" And we were like, we're probably going tour. No plans, by the way. We're like, we're
Right.
going tour.
Yeah.
They were like, well, why don't you perform at some of our venues, our stores? And we were like, yo, like we could
Yeah,
do like
that's
a stripped down sort of like acoustic soul tour. They're like, let's do that. So we
mhm.
go to different Starbucks stores doing like these performances. So now
Wow.
we're on tour with Starbucks. And people are like, yo, y'all crushing it. Mind you, we
That's
ain't making
great.
that much money,
Right,
but
right,
like
right, but
by like
it's
hardly any
still
money.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's happening, dude. So like that thing happens
Oh,
right after the release party. We get our songs on the radio, like our songs are playing on the radio in
dude,
Detroit.
that's
It's
insane.
unreal,
That
dude. And remember, like
that
your
is
father, by the way, your father,
yeah.
when a song first played on the radio for the first time, yeah, your father called me, was like, man, like hold on to this moment right here for
Yeah.
those days where like things aren't working out. Remember what this felt like, because that's what you're working towards.
Man.
And those moments will feel like back to back to back to back to back, and then nothing, then drought,
Mm.
and then something big will happen, then drought. I mean, it was like you're just this
Wow,
constant roller
yeah, just
coaster of things
constant ups
happening.
and
Then now
downs, yeah.
it's like ups and downs and ups and downs. So like the Starbucks thing happens, and then we meet somebody from the NBA. Well, my business partner Mike met someone from the NBA, and
Mhm.
she was like, "Yo, what y'all been up to?" He's like, "Got this record label. We just went on tour with Starbucks." She's like, "Y'all touring with Starbucks?" Like, yeah, you
Yeah,
know.
right.
And
Just
she's
like
like, "Hey, I'm coordinating this tour with the NBA and Sprite. Y'all want to be an opening act?"
what?
And we were like, "Yeah, we can do that.
You're
Yeah,
right,
we can
right,
do,
right.
we can do
I think
that.
we get added to the schedule.
Make that happen." So like
Wow.
now we're opening up for Keisha Cole and Jagged Edge. Like
Dude, what? This
in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm about to blow. Y'all better
right,
like,
right.
like yo,
Get the
y'all better come
wow.
see me now because tomorrow y'all not gonna be to know you, boy. Like that's what mine is, right? And again, like it never tips. Like it's like close, never
Mhm.
tips. We're at a show, and we meet an exec from McDonald's who's like, yo, I heard, like, I like that song you play, the song called Baby You Are, that's on
Mhm.
the album. She's like, I like that song, man. Like, we have this like spicy chicken sandwich coming out that like that would be a
The
really good
what?
like tune. And he was like, do you do licensing? We are like, yeah. So there's
Of
a
course.
commercial with Baby You Are
There
as
is no
I'm like,
way.
we
What?
are about to
There's
blow.
no
Like,
way.
my mind, yo.
I
I'm
am
like,
just wow.
dude, this is all
What?
happening in a matter of like 18 months. Like, I'm like, y'all can't tell me
That's
nothing. We about to
yeah.
blow, period. Right. So this is happening, and it's all serendipitous, by the way. We got no strategy. We're just like
Right,
kind of
right.
reacting,
Just
responding.
going right, right,
Exactly.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And like now we're performing a lot in the city, just trying to like get our chops up because we knew that like we're gonna win fans over, like fan to fan. We're gonna knock on
Right.
doors, like fan by
Yep.
fan by fan, one by one. We're gonna
That's
get
what you
them.
gotta do. Yeah.
So like by the summer of 2005, is that right? Yeah, summer 2005. Yeah, dude, we're playing like 4 nights a week. Like we were
Wow.
playing everywhere. We
And
were
this is
playing at
throughout the city of Detroit or
outside Detroit. So we're like in Detroit, right? We're playing at like Fishbones. We're playing at the
mm,
casino. We're playing everywhere. Like we're
yeah.
just gigging, and like building like a little following in the city, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
starts that way. So we're like, that's totally fine. It's well and good, all to the good. And now we're like, okay, we need to like get a new album. We need to start getting new stuff. Well, let's call up the folks at Starbucks, try to get the wheel going again. And it was like a new phone. Who this?
Right.
Because like what was happening is that like they were rocking with us because we were like cheap, man. Like they liked the story, but like
Yeah.
we were a lot of
It was
smoke, but
right.
a lot of smoke and mirrors, man. Not a lot of like substance, right?
Mhm.
And at that time, the record industry is hit an iceberg, man. Like this is
Right.
like
2004,
Titanic style.
2005 era.
So when they were rocking with us to like do stuff with brands for these no-name guys, like they could do that with like now decent name guys because the Sonys of the world, they're like, we take any revenue we can get because we're losing on the
Wow.
content side. So like, dude, like our business is swiftly unwinding. They're just like
Yeah.
unwinding. Luckily, we're performing in the city still, so we're making like that sort of money, but it ain't a whole lot when you're paying
Right,
a
yeah.
band, right? Like
Yeah.
so now it's 2006. We're still performing like 4 times a week, and like the money is drying up quickly. And
Uh-oh.
my parents are like, "What you gonna do, brother?
Right,
What you
right,
gonna
right,
do?"
right.
And
Sounds
so
like
like
engineering is knocking at the door.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, let me go dust off that degree that I haven't used in
Right.
6 years, like 5.5 years. Not good, right? And like it, just like is vulnerably speaking, like I was in a relationship with a young lady that like we're together for like 5 years. And while
Mhm.
that's while my company's unraveling, our relationship just implodes. Like
It's not, yeah.
it's like everything is like falling apart. I mean, I feel like an utter failure. Like everything is falling around me. And my parents who had been supporting me, especially when things were getting rough, and they were like, "Yo, we're done, dog. Like you got to figure it out."
Yeah.
So I get the mind that like, listen, this digital disruption has like really upended the industry that I'm in. I know I want to be in music. So we should
Mhm.
probably understand this industry if we are going to keep this company.
Right,
So
yeah.
Mike and I decided like one of us should go to business school. I was like, I'll go to business school. And my thinking is like, I go to business school to go work at Apple so I can like, sneak through the back door at iTunes to get, get the label going. Right.
Right,
Um,
right.
so now I'm studying for the MBA program, like studying for the,
Mhm.
the GMAT. And I'm
Yeah.
telling my dad, like, mom, dad, I think I'm about to go into business school. Like, yeah, like I'm like, you're gonna help me out, right? My
And
dad, like,
what age are you at that you're 27, 20,
I'm 26 at the time. No,
26?
20, yeah, 27 actually. Yes, I'm 27. I
Okay.
just turned 27.
Going back
And
then.
it's
Okay.
that summer. So I turned 27 in April. So it's that summer. And I'm like, everything I thought that I had is gone.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
I thought,
that's
this is the one I thought I was going to marry, like gone, right?
yeah.
Like my career gone. And I'm still performing, I'm still in music, but it's
Mhm.
not like I envisioned it was going to be. And interesting enough, like your dad, man, your dad's like one of the closest people to me in this world. I always talk to him about these things. And he would always say,
Mhm.
like, like, would you do music if it meant you had nothing? Like if you were like dirt poor, could hardly eat, would you be satisfied with the choice of doing music? In my
Mhm.
mind, I was like, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. Nothing else. I couldn't fathom doing anything else other
Right.
than writing. I mean, it's a part of my identity. Like you knew it. Marcus is the music guy. Like
Right, right.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
imagine
yeah.
myself doing anything else.
Mhm.
So going to business school really was just like it was like pressing reset on my life. And
Yeah.
just to keep it totally true, because this is the place, this is the trust tree, right? This is where
Right,
we're
yeah.
totally honest, man. Like I was at a point in my life where I need to make the ends meet. I need to sustain myself.
Yeah.
So I decided to take out a loan because my GPA was so awful. I barely graduated undergrad
Mhm.
to get to any business school that's like worth your weight in salt. I need a better GPA. I need to show them that I'm not dumb. So
Right.
I had to go take some classes to get a better GPA. So I had to pay for those classes. So I got a
Yeah.
loan to go take classes at Wayne State to show that like I'm not dumb
Mhm.
while
Right,
I'm
right. Yeah,
studying
yeah.
for the GMAT, while I'm watching, my company unravel and my relationship die.
Yeah.
Um, and I got to make money too while I got this debt and pay
Right,
for
right.
what's going
Yeah.
on in life. So a friend of mine's like, why don't you just substitute teach? She's like, I substitute teach. It's totally fine. Like, yo, you just go hang out. Like you get a kid's an assignment. I just basically said it. She's like, yo, get a kid's an assignment. You're sort of just like babysitting. In my mind, I'm like, all right, cool. Like I can go babysit. I just write music while I'm like sitting at the desk while they're doing their assignment, whatever, easy
Mhm.
peasy. But I forgot I'm still performing at the time. So this was my life, straight up. I get a call from Romulus Schools. I was living in Detroit, downtown Detroit, get a call from Romulus Schools at like 5:30 in the morning, say, hey, we have a need for a substitute teacher. Are you available? And of course I go, cool, I'm available.
Right,
So
yeah.
I get up at 5:30 in the morning, go take a shower. So I get to school, get to the classroom by 6:45, 7 o'clock, something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then I would be there all day till like, no, it's like 2:30, class is over.
Right.
I go home, go to the studio to try to write, record a little bit, and then we would perform that evening from like 8 to like 1 a.m. So I get back to
Yeah.
the house about 2 a.m., go
Right.
to sleep, get a call at 5:30. Hey, you want to teach? Like that was my life.
Wow.
And I just like, this isn't sustainable. And
Right,
the thing
right,
is,
yeah.
like, what I envisioned my life would be like having a family. Like,
Mhm.
who gonna marry me? Like, it's like, I
Right,
was
right,
like,
I gotta get somewhere to be, you know.
who would marry this? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm a mess. I'm a mess. So business school was like, man, it was the Hail Mary. Like that was the like, God, please
Wow.
deliver me. It was like, please, because
That's that's kinda insane.
life was in shambles, dude, shambles. And I felt stuck. I just felt like nothing was working.
Mhm.
But thanks be to God, I got accepted to the Ross School of Business. I mean, like if they accepted 500 people, I was the 500th person. Dude.
Oh, man. Yeah,
I
I
got
I
accepted
think
to Ross. Yeah, it was great.
I think that's it's an important point to emphasize, this, inflection point in your life because I think it speaks to my generation in the fact that we want to have everything accomplished by 27. Where you were at this point. We want to have everything accomplished. We're going to be a millionaire at 27, then be married and then
Exactly.
have kids. And, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, at 27, we just want to, what is it? Financially free. I'm living,
Yeah.
living in Hawaii with my kids. I'm raising, like
That's right.
that's just our view, in the, in the shell and the generalizing shell, it's our view of what we think we should be at a
That's right.
certain age, and especially by 30,
Yeah.
and I think it's just important to realize that, some obviously you're going to make decisions now, when you're 20 or you're 13 or you're 15, whatever age you are. Um, but the amount, I think this has been something that I've had to realize myself and continue to realize, but the amount of time that 5 or 10 years is just it's incomprehensible. Like you cannot comprehend how long 5 years actually is, especially in my stage because I'm only 20 and I've lived most of my life under my parents,
Yeah.
with like my own free will. I've only lived, maybe a year and a half or 2 years. So
Maybe.
I can't
Yeah.
comprehend, yeah, yeah. So I can't comprehend, what that 5 years is like of me just making every single decision in my life.
Yeah.
That's something completely different than it was going from, 10 to 15,
For real, for
So
real.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to make a note of that and, also talk to the audience there. Um, that it's okay. Like, it's okay. I'm not saying that you have to be in this situation, but that there are people that, lots of people that go through these hard times and go through complete career shifts, as, we've seen in your scenario, but, um, they're coming out all right, they're
That's
coming out
right.
all right. And
Yeah.
yes, you took time, it did take time, but you still enjoy, you might not enjoy that, that 1 year where you had to basically be, up 24/7, but you still enjoyed the process of the small success well, I would
Huge.
say big success. I would say huge success because I haven't necessarily heard this story all the way through for the audience.
Yeah.
I
This,
I
this is
even
the
though it is, my uncle, I haven't, chopped it up to hear the whole full story. I get bits and pieces here and there throughout the years, but um I just think I just wanted to drive that point home that
yeah.
it's okay to to still be figuring out after college, a few years after college, going back to get a different degree, not working in the field that you got your degree in and getting,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a totally different field. Because I feel that, just our generation and people around me feel pressured to, all right, I get this degree, I gotta work this job, 35 years, get the benefits, I'll be 50, 60 years old, and then I can enjoy life. It's like, nah, man, that's
Nah,
that's
fam,
40 years of
doing it
your life,
wrong.
man. It's
You're
40
doing it
years of your life
wrong.
you're just
Like,
throwing away. No way.
you're doing it wrong. You're doing it
Yeah.
wrong. And you know what? And though those years were they were hard, they were awesome, man. Like, I mean, I get they're so I'm so fond memories, man, of like doing gigs and like, and man, I just it's so it feels really good, right? It really I think about those years very, very fondly because of how awesome
Right.
they were. Um,
Yeah.
and like for me, business school, like I wasn't excited about business per se. Like I was
Mhm.
interested, I was curious about it because I ran a business that
Right.
started to unwind. So I was very curious about like the mechanisms of them. And I thought that marketing was the most creative form of music. In my mind, I was like, well, I use words in 4/4. So I guess I could use words in like a 60-second spot, I suppose. Like I was like, that's my
No,
thinking. It's
fair
like
enough. Yeah.
the canvas is different, but at the same time, it's just, it's creative expression. So I was like, this seemed like
Mhm.
the best thing for me to do. And my
Right.
mind was set that like I'm working for Apple. Like that's why I'm doing this to get the gig at Apple so I can get through the
Yeah.
back door and get on. Right.
Mhm.
So I get to Ross and I felt like the dumbest person in the world. Like I felt dumb in undergrad. Oh, in
Right,
business school,
right.
I
It's
felt like
completely
an
different level.
idiot. Yo, the people there were so unbelievably accomplished. Like legit, there was a rocket scientist in our cohort, like
Huh.
legit worked at Lear, like that, like that's just like people
That's
who had accomplished so much. And I was
Mhm.
like, dude, I don't know, like how you even let me get in here.
Right, right, yeah.
And so I felt dumb the entire time. But the first year, I felt really stupid. So much so that I kept like my notebook for class, and then I had a notebook for jargon. Like it was like a vocabulary notebook that I kept on my
Mhm.
person. When I
Right.
hear people
Got you,
say
got you.
words, I'd be like, interesting. I know what that was, right? And like people talked a certain way that I didn't talk. Like
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
talked like this. Like everybody seemed to go up when they talk like this, and I didn't really talk like that. So I know how to really
Yeah.
talk like that. I was like, I don't really talk like that. Like it was like I was like, I don't like I felt like I didn't really fit in.
Right.
So I guess my insecurity was that, oh, now I'm just gonna like double down on the opposite then. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
not gonna even try to be all. I'm just gonna completely double down. So
Wow.
I wouldn't say I adopted a caricature. That would be inaccurate. I just I just decided to like be unapologetically like
Yeah.
me. So every day I rocked a Detroit Tigers hat cocked to the side. I always wore
Wow.
like really bright, like outlandish sneakers all the
Mhm.
time. Like that's just kind of my style, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
and in class, I wouldn't be like, Professor, I have a question. I'm like, hold up, son. You talk like that. You talk like that. There was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna double down. We're gonna totally double down. And my
Wow,
strategy was
man.
like, I'm gonna be known as the cool kid. I'll be the cool kid at business school because everybody was not cool at business
Right, right.
school. Like people would go get their
Just
MBA.
bland. Yeah.
There you go. Very bland. Like people go get their MBAs. They had immaculate undergraduate careers. So they
Mhm.
didn't party or didn't have fun. They
Right.
studied.
Yeah, yeah.
Then they went to these amazing jobs. They weren't out having these,
Right,
adventures.
right. It's
They're doing
getting
work.
getting sponsored by Starbucks.
Exactly. Yeah. So they go to business school, and then that's when they kind of relive these sophomoric years. Like
Hmm.
what I saw. I was like, "We're 30
Right.
years old. What are you
Right,
doing?"
right.
It
What are
was, it
y'all
was
doing?
unbelievable. Like they just revert to this like sophomoric self. And
Mhm.
me, my mind was like, "Yo, I got a chance to. I hung out with Keisha Cole. Like that's where I'm coming from. Coming
Yeah.
here. So it's like I'm just gonna be the cool guy. Like I'm just gonna be that. Like I'm gonna business school, and people are gonna be like, that guy is not like everybody else. Marcus is cool. He wanted to work at Apple. He has an iPhone. This is like 2007. Like everything, just so people know me, and Apple knows me. Anyway, so I shoot my shot at Apple, prayerfully, like, please make this work out. And it did. I got the internship at Apple.
Mhm.
Um, I was doing everything I could to make that happen. And I'll detour just quickly.
Mhm.
Um, like I knew that on paper I wasn't as compelling as everybody else, so I had to find an upper hand. So as soon
Right.
as I got accepted to business school, I called I reached out via email to every Michigan alum who had ever worked at Apple. It's like,
Wow.
I'm a Ross student coming in, interested in working at Apple. Just want to know about your experience. Would love to talk to you for 15 minutes. And I did that the
Wow.
entire summer before I started business school. So by the time I got to business school and the recruiter from Apple came to campus, she already heard about me because I talked to
Wow.
like 30 people, and they were
Wow.
like, yeah, somebody said, should we meet you and whatever. So I'm like talking, I'm like getting it going.
Yeah.
I used to throw parties at in the MBA program. We used to call them mixers because
Mhm.
business school is
Right,
square, it's
right.
super square.
Yeah, yeah.
And like the social life for business school students were like drinking and like doing headstands on ice
Right.
luges. I'm just like, ugh, like what's going on here? Like, 30 years old, what's happening
Right,
here?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm used to a social life in like New York City, like things are a little more buttoned
Right,
up.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we throw these mixers at a restaurant on campus where it'll be like the business school and then the law school one week. The next week it'll be the business school and the school of social work. And the next week,
Mhm.
and so every week it was a
Wow.
new program. But the
Mhm.
thinking was that if we do it right, the program from the week before will come back the next week, and our place will become
Oh,
the
got
spot.
you.
And it
Wow.
was the spot. Was the spot. And we got a cut of the bar, which was great. Right. So like
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
money, which is really nice. So when I did my first interview at Apple, it was a like an informal, like, let's get a drink, let's go talk. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, won't you come by Vinology on Thursday night when my parties were happening?
Right, right,
So
right.
the man walks in,
Wow.
he's like, what is this? And I was like, no parties, come over here, let's have a talk. Right.
Right,
So like
right.
I'm totally like trying to make it happen. Anyway,
Right.
I get the gig at Apple, the internship at Apple. It's amazing. I go to Cupertino that summer. I'm working on iTunes, which is awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. And my
Crazy. Yeah.
partner, the partnership that I'm running for, that I'm managing rather, for iTunes is Nike Sports Music. It's like,
What?
that's dope. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Nike Human Race. I managed Apple's relationship with that.
Mhm.
We did a run mix with De La Soul. Did a run mix with A-Track, who was Kanye West's DJ at the time. Did all these really dope stuff. I bring
Mhm.
this new idea to the table about partnering with iTunes U and universities to do like this college music mix that we actually
Right.
do. I presented to Eddie Q, who is
Wow.
head of internet services. He was head of iTunes at the time, but now
Mhm.
head of internet services at Apple. And he's like, why aren't we doing this? We should do this. And I'm like, yo, crush it.
That's yeah. Right, right,
Great
right.
summer.
That's
So
that's
at
one
the
of
end
those
of the
little
summer,
moments, you know?
yo, one of the moments, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
watch out, Steve Jobs, let's do this. Like when
Right, right,
he
right.
what he was. So
Oh.
into the summer, now typically for an MBA student, you intern between the 2 years of your MBA, and the ideal is that you get an offer to come
Mhm.
back for after your second year. That's like
Gotcha.
that's the goal, especially if you like
That's
the
mhm.
place. You get an offer. So your second year of business school, I got a job. I'm all set, right? It's like, it's
Mhm.
smooth sailing. Um, my boss says, yo, at the end of the summer, is like, man, you crushed it this summer. And normally I would give you an offer, but we're in the middle of a recession. We're about to go into the recession.
Yeah, yeah, because that would
Double
be
whammy, dude. That now 9/11,
wow, that is
2008 recession. I'm
man.
like, yeah, I can't win for losing. So he's like, yo, normally I would
Wow.
give you would get an offer, no doubt. He's like,
Mhm.
but yo, we're on a hiring freeze, so can't do that. However, technically you're an employee, so I can actually bring you on full time now. And I go, yo, like I got to finish a whole year of business school. And he's like, just
Yeah.
work remotely. And I'm like, bet.
What?
So I spent my entire second
What?
year of business school working at Apple, going to Cupertino, like I'm
Yeah.
working at Apple, like I'm managing
Dude,
relationships with
what?
Nike. I'm like, so while I'm in class talking about whatever, I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, let me call you right back. I got to start out of class for a second because this is Target calling me about a campaign we're doing with them, or Best Buy.
Wow.
Like that's what I'm doing, and it's
Yeah.
great. So I'm not recruiting anymore because I know I'm going to go work at Apple when I graduate. Like I'm an employee now. Like I have my
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah,
badge. I'm
yeah.
here. Into the school year happening, I hit my boss up like, yo, hey, graduation's right around the block. When do you want
Mhm.
me to move to Cupertino? Like we want to do this. Like I want to travel a little bit beforehand, but like I just want to
Right,
come
right.
get me. get my passport up before I head back. And he goes, yeah, about that. Here's the thing. We had some restructuring in the group. So you're not going to be on iTunes. And we're trying to find a spot for you on the Mobile Me team. What? Now, I don't know if you remember Mobile Me.
No, yeah. Before at
The
me.
precursor to iCloud. Yeah, exactly. Mobile Me was like, it was their cloud, which was a complete and utter failure. I was like, I'm not, what?
Right. I'm not trying to be a part of that. Yeah.
I'm the music guy. I'm not going to Mobile Me. And he's like, yo, it's that or nothing. It's like, yo, even if you're Steve Jobs' cousin, it ain't happening. I was like, I guess it's nothing. Now, this is 2009, the height of the recession. I just graduated with my MBA, 116 grand in debt, no job, no leads. And I tell Apple,
and turn them down. Wow.
So my parents are like, okay, clearly we raised an idiot. Like, this guy is a fool. He's an absolute
idiot. I can't imagine the circumstances and what you were feeling in that moment when they were saying that obviously it's Mobile Me or nothing, but you have all of these obviously responsibilities in life. It's like, yo, if I don't make this work, if I say no to this offer, what is my next step? Like, there's no certainty.
It was panic, and it was like just disbelief. You know, my Uncle Hurley, your grandfather, who was like a second father to me, not like he was a second father to me, very, 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 very close. And I talked to him about everything, like all the ins and outs. And he said to me straight up, because this is kind of how our relationship was. And I was like, yeah, when I graduate, I'll get this gig at, I'll work at Apple. And I was like, I think I started like 120K. And I was like, that's great. He was like, oh, that has to be the case, Marcus, or you have failed. He was like, if you don't do that, if you don't come out of this thing with that job, making that much money, you have failed.
What?
Like straight, like dead.
Right. Yeah. Just
deadpan. It's like, no, you failed. Like, you have this, all this was for naught. If you don't end up there based on all that you've done and all the that people have poured into you, invested in you, if you're not doing that, man, this was a complete failure. So I'm graduating with that on my neck, as well as 120 grand, as well as debt in the middle of a recession. And like, dude, I'm like, I mean, it was a sense of panic, but at the same time, a sense of calm. I felt like at that time in my life, which has been sort of a mantra for me going forward, is that if it's for me, it's already mine. If it's for me, it's already, like, there's so many things, so many doors that had opened up for me that I had no business getting. I mean, I shouldn't have got that job at Apple. Like, I should have no business getting that gig, man. But so many doors that opened up for me, like beyond my volition. Like, this is like just God doing this, that I knew that, like, I'm gonna be all right. I just kind of felt that. I felt that sense of like, this is gonna hurt, but I'm gonna be all right. So I packed my bags.
I don't know if I could have done that. Just analytically, I would have been. Because I'm just at everything numbers. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, everything has to work out, even with the decisions and taking the semester off. I was like, well, I got to take this semester off. I get the most amount of months off. Everything had to work out. And obviously I'm learning as life goes on. It just won't work out. Like, I have it in my head all the time, or never. Some will be good, some will be bad, but yeah.
So if like, I felt like the alternative wasn't an option for me. The alternative was move in with my parents and sort of figure it out. And that was not an option, man. Like, that was Yeah.
I hear you.
So I moved, my lease was over my apartment. I put all my stuff in storage. I packed 2 suitcases and I moved to New York. I leased a room in, like subletted a room in New York City for a month. It's like, I'm gonna beat the bushes. I mean, thankfully I had a MBA salary my whole entire last year of business school working at Apple. So I had some savings. So I went there. I'm like, I'm just gonna make it happen, dude. I'm gonna like beat the bushes. and I beat the bushes. Like I was just, man, I would meet any and everybody. Luckily, like I was still connected with Apple. So no, I wasn't working
Mhm.
there. I had people who were introducing me. Like I'm meeting people, taking people for
Gotcha.
lunch, for dinner, meeting everybody. And like I met like not want to say everybody, but I met a lot of like movers and shakers, dude.
Right,
Like
right.
I was talking with Def Jam Interactive, which is from Def Jam
Mhm.
Music Group, but this is like all the non record label stuff, which was run by Kevin Liles, Russell Simmons, Leora Cohen, right? And I'm working with like their number two person. They just launched Def Jam Vendetta, the video game, the Xbox game. Like, and they're like,
Mhm.
yo, we need someone who understands apps. I'm like, I just came from Apple. I know the App Store.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
like I'm going back and forth from New York to Detroit trying to make something happen, blah, blah, blah. This before I actually make the move.
Mhm.
And like this is like I meet Kevin Liles 2 times. And he's like, oh, we're gonna do this, baby. Like
Right.
you need to meet the guys. You gotta meet Russell and
Mhm.
Leor and like let's do this. And like I'm like on DAP hug basis with Kevin Liles. I'm like, it's about to happen. So I have this meeting with Kevin Liles, Russell Simmons, and Leora Cohen. So I get called up to the office, and I'm in Leora Cohen's green room. And these are the guys who created Def Jam. Like these are
Right, yeah.
legends in the game, right? I'm in the green room. I'm just waiting, and I hear people going into the other room, and like almost immediately, it's a shouting match in the other room, dude. I'm like, what is
Right,
going
what's
on?
what's happening here?
What's going on? And then like the assistant comes out and was like, they're ready for you.
No,
It's like,
I'm like, "No,
what?
I'm good, changed my mind." No, I'm
No,
not.
seriously. So I
Yeah.
walk in. I mean, I don't know what to do. I'm so like nervous already,
Right,
and
right,
it's
right.
so awkward. So I go, "Hey guys, how's it going?" I walk in. I'm like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" They're like, "Hey, wait, whatever." So
Right,
I
right.
shake Russell Simmons like he has a cast on for some reason. So he gives me like this, like shaking with his left hand.
Right,
I
right.
come up, Kevin Liles, and then Leor Cohen's behind the desk. He gets up, tall Israeli guy, shakes my
Mhm.
hand, I sit down, and it's like Kevin says with the room's like, this is Marcus. We meet with him. He used to work at Apple, blah, 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 blah. He has some really
Mhm.
great ideas. And I make a prospectus, dude. Like I've got like bounded prospectus that I'm handing out to, like I'm talking, like I'm just starting to talk. And Russell Simmons goes, what's the biggest app in the app store right now? I was like, Tap Tap's Revenge. And he was like, what would be a good idea, a good app for Def Jam? And I'm like trying to wing
Right, right,
something.
yeah. Yeah, just
And
come
he's
up.
like, "Oh, that's just some old ish. What about that?" And I'm like, "Okay." He's like totally like berating me, dude.
Yeah.
And it's like super weird. And I'm like, "Well, there's like there's the Zippo lighter app." He was like, "Zippo lighter, what's that?" I was like, "Well, it's like a lighter, but it's on your phone, but it's not really a lighter." And he's like,
Mhm.
so you go to concerts, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" Then Leora is like, "Russell, it's a lighter. You go to the concert, they put the thing up. It's like, dude." I'm like, "What is happening right now?" And then Russell goes, I hear that you're creative. I hope that you're creative. And he leaves the room. And now and I look at
What?
Leor like, what's just happening? And then Leor put the prospectus down and he says, thank you so much. And I go, oh, this means I leave. And then Kevin goes, yeah. So I walk out the room and I never hear from them again. So I thought that was going to be the gig. That goes
Right,
away.
right.
That goes away. I meet Kadar Massenberg, who used to run Motown. He is
Okay.
responsible for he's responsible for what we know as neo soul. He
Mm,
signed Erica Badu. He's the
gotcha.
guy. I'm going back and forth with him. I'm meeting up with him. I'm having lunch with him. He's taking me on video shoots, and he's like, "I'm gonna do this. You're gonna be my number two guy." And I'm like, "Bet it's happening. It's happening."
Right, right, right. Yeah.
And he goes cold on me. Nothing. I hear from him no more. And I'm like, dude, it's like all these close calls and then it's failing.
Right.
And my friends are like, Marcus, man, just like apply to like a pet job. Like do take whatever. Like just do some NBA gig, man. I'm like, I didn't
Mhm.
sacrifice all this for that. Like
Right.
I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about
I'm
Uncle
not
Hurley.
thinking small. I'm not, yeah.
If you don't do this, you failed. Right. That's
Mhm.
kind of keep thinking about. So man, it's just not working for me. I'm trying everything. I'm burning through money, just burning through money. Um, and I end up meeting a guy who runs an agency, and he's like, "Yo, I can't really pay you But I'd love to do some work with you. So
Right.
legit, they paid me in Nike gift cards. Like legit, that was my got Nike gift cards. Like that's where I was in life, Cameron. That's where I was in
So
life.
what did you do with Nike gift cards though?
Just have dope sneakers. That was it. I mean, like I was just burning through my savings, man. It was
Wow.
scary. It was really, really
Yeah.
scary. um, but so my now wife, then girlfriend,
Mhm.
says like introduced me to her cousin Lauren. And I'm
Mhm.
telling Lauren about what I do. She's like, "Oh, that's so cool!" Like, I used to work in music. Not really. I worked at Ticketmaster, and we used to do
Mm.
all the
Mhm.
ticketing for major artists. She's like, in fact, like you know what? Like we used to like work with Beyonce's team, like because we did her ticketing. I introduced to her. I know the guy who runs digital over there. He's amazing. I'd be happy to introduce you. I'm like, bet, please introduce me. So she sends a note to this gentleman with
Mhm.
me on copy and my resume. He's like, oh, meet Marcus. He's great. He's great. He's great.
Yeah.
Um, but his email kicks back to her. He no longer works there. So I was like, thanks, Lauren. What are you gonna do? Like,
Right,
I'm
right,
so much
right, yeah.
disappointment at this point. I'm like, so of course, it didn't work out. Right. But then we get an email. Both of us get an email back from a woman named Liz Pecora, who was the general manager of Music World Entertainment, who is the record label and management company for Beyonce. And
Uh-huh.
he no longer worked there. So his email got forwarded to her. And she goes, hey,
Oh.
so and so doesn't work here anymore, but we'd love to meet Marcus.
Right, right.
I'm like, all right, God, I
There we
see
go.
you.
There we go.
I'm like, here we go. Get
This
back on the
is
horse. It's about to
yep,
happen.
yep.
Like, great, cool, sweet. We'll find some time to meet, whatever. Okay, cool,
Mhm.
sweet. I'm on the subway going into the city because I think I'm in Brooklyn at this point. Maybe I'm in Brooklyn. No, I'm in the Bronx at this point. So I'm going to the city, right? I got on like I didn't even sneak, I got on flip flops, jeans, a polo shirt, in my backpack, about to go to this agency where I get paid Nike gift cards.
Wow.
About to go do some work. We're working on something
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
Black Planet at the time. Somebody going for. I get off the train. I look at my phone and I get an email from one of the people at Music World, like, "Hey, this is Nichelle Poindexter from Music World Entertainment.
Mhm.
We love let's schedule some time to meet." And I'm like, "Oh, sweet! Like, maybe tomorrow." And she's like, "No, I'm actually thinking like today." And I'm like in the city now, and I'm like and
In the
like it's the
yeah.
music industry, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I felt like I've gotten so jerked over by the music industry that I'm like, I'm gonna show these guys what's what. So I tell the agency I'm not coming in today, so
Mhm.
save that gift card for later.
Wow. Yep.
And I go to H&M and I buy a suit off the rack. I buy some shoes. I go get my portfolio printed up and bound the whole nine. I'm like, I'm about to show these people what's what, right? So I got
Right, yeah.
brand new suit off the rack, right? Not tailored, whatever. And I'm like,
Right, right.
I'm going to this conversation. We want to just meet Marcus to like show them like I'm all about the business.
Wow.
Dude, I walk in that afternoon. It is a round table conversation with 6 people. This isn't like, let's just get coffee and chat. This is an
Right.
interview. Like, yo, if I would have come in without the suit, they would have been like,
Yeah.
this guy's a joke. Right. So I come in, I meet them. I did really well. I did well. I give myself credit for
Mhm.
that. And so the legend goes. So I've been told, this is the story, that Liz Pecora, the general manager,
Mhm.
reaches out to Matthew Knowles and saying, Matthew, we met this guy named Marcus, and he's an engineer. He started a music company. He has an MBA. He worked at Apple. And Matthew, like, he's from Detroit too. Like, he's like
Right,
black.
right.
And Matthew goes, no, he ain't. He ain't real. He's like Matthew, we met the guy. Like, he's real. And Matthew's like, nah, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And she's like, Matthew, like, we talked to the guy for an hour. He's like, I want to meet him. So I fly to Houston to meet Matthew Knowles. So we talk, good conversation. And then he's like, yo, I want you to spend the night in Houston. I want you to see what Houston's all about. And I'm like, I feel like I'm getting kidnapped, but like, all right,
Right.
fine, whatever. Like,
Let's do it.
it's supposed to be a day trip. I'm like, fine, I'll stay the night, whatever. Right. So,
Mhm.
and he's like, all right, cool. You'll hear from me in a week. A week later, I get an email from Matthew saying, all right, here's the deal. I want you to come run digital strategy for Beyonce. I'm going to pay you this, but you got to live in Houston. And I'm like, nah, dog. The money is very low,
Right.
and I'm not living in Houston. Like, just not
Yeah,
happening. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
do the South, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is my first time getting an offer after all of these no's. What
Mhm.
do I do? And I prayed about it. And I was like, I do what I felt was right. So I sent him a note thanking him, and I gave him three options. Like, to do this job well, I needed to be in New York, and based here, making this much money. And I give him all these different permutations, different options. And he
Right.
picks the option where I spend 3 months in Houston. I make a little bit more money, but not as much as I wanted,
Mhm.
like 25% lower what an MBA salary should be.
Mhm.
But I'd be based in New York, and I'm running digital strategy for the organization, which means running digital strategy for Beyoncé Knowles. And
Right,
I'm like,
right.
okay, I'll do it.
Right.
This is great.
Reluctantly.
So
Right,
this is
right.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like doing the single ladies years. I mean, this is the
This is
prime
when
time to be in
she's
Beyonce
yeah,
business.
she's just popping off.
Killing, crushing, right? So
Yeah.
yada yada yada. Great. I mean, it's awesome, awesome, awesome experience. Like, I've seen her. Like, I'm like working with her. Like, if I'm sitting
Mhm.
here, Beyonce's sitting right there. Like, we're on a hug basis. Like, that's like like I'm working with Beyonce, right? And
Wow.
and like I'd see Jay-Z all the time. Like, it was like I was like Matthew was my manager. Like, that's what I reported to Matthew Knowles, right?
Yeah.
So, just amazing, amazing time. But I realized three things. The first, I realized that I don't know how good I am. Like, I look in the mirror and say, all the success that Beyonce's having, does it have anything to do with me? I couldn't say.
Right.
Secondly, I felt like when it came to digital and social, I was the smartest person in the room, but I was not the smartest person, which means I was probably in the wrong room. And then the
Right.
third is that I had a sense that she was going to leave, that she was going to like do her own thing. And if
Mhm.
she left, like, that's the company's done.
Right.
So I bounced early. I went to advertising because advertisers were doing a better job breaking artists than record labels were. Went to a
Mhm.
pure play social agency called Big Fuel, where I learned the ins and outs of social. Ended up meeting a guy named Steve Stout, who was a record label guy who like signed Eminem and all these major acts. Like, this guy is
Wow.
like number two dude at Interscope. The Jimmy Iovine was his mentor, and he starts a advertising agency called Translation with Jay-Z and Jimmy Iovine. And he, so he told me. So the story goes that he asked three people. I'm looking for someone who knows digital social, who understands culture and understands brand. And those three people named me. And he was like, I'm going to meet that
Wow.
guy, which is crazy. Like, just crazy. Unbelievable.
Mhm.
We court each other for like 9 months. And he asked me to come to Translation to build and grow the social practice there. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that.
Right. Like, let's
Totally
do it.
do that. Yeah. So I go there, and like my career is made there. It's like I cut my teeth there. Like, though the Beyonce stuff was amazing,
Mhm.
like I really got good at Translation. And there, I launched Made in
Wow.
America Music Festival for Budweiser, moved the New Jersey Nets from New Jersey to Brooklyn to become the Brooklyn Nets. So I launched that, the Hello Brooklyn campaign, moved the team, and launched the Barclays Center. Um,
Yeah.
I launched the Cliff Paul campaign for State Farm. Right? It's
Mhm.
like, my
Yep, yep,
career
yep,
is
yep.
just like the career
It's
is
yeah, it's
killing.
blowing up. There it is.
Like, the receipts are crazy. Not a lot of accolades, but the
Mhm.
receipts are real. And I feel like I'm good at what I do. I'm really good at what I do at this
Right.
point. And I started to realize that, like, what I thought I knew about social was an incomplete view. That social is about people, and I knew nothing about people. So I started investing myself into social sciences, like reading everything I could about social science and
Mhm.
applying that knowledge to the work. And the work got infinitely better, which was great, which is why I started teaching at NYU. While I was at Translation, we had our eldest daughter, Georgia. Um, so we ended up moving back to Michigan, which was great, and like close to my family, close to
Yeah.
church. And in my mind, just straight up, like, this is all truth. In my mind, I'm going to Detroit. I'm just going to slow down. Like, I thought my career
Hmm.
is going to be like, this is fine. This is all good. Like, work
Right,
nine to
right.
five. If I can like teach one class in Michigan, that would be like divine.
Right.
That's what I'm telling myself. And in the first year back here, I win at age 40 under 40. I
Yeah, I
ran
remember that.
Crane's business 40 under 40. I go from teaching one class at Ross to teaching a half a course load at Ross. I'm doing TED Talks. It's more than I could imagine. It really, like, it's better than I could have wished for, which is like wild. And even when I look back And like the music, the years that I was like pursuing music, though it wasn't what I thought it was, this is so much better. It's
Right.
so much better because if things had popped the way I wanted to in the world of music,
Hmm.
I wouldn't be active in the church like I want to be, like I am now, because I
Yeah.
wouldn't even be here. And like, there's a rub, right? Like I wouldn't be the father that I am because I
Hmm.
probably wouldn't be around. I wouldn't be the husband I am because I probably wouldn't be around. And these things are like, these are staples to who I am as a person. And here I'm like exercising myself like to the full capacity. And I still get to do music in church, which is awesome.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
all the things are like there, man. It's better than I ever could have imagined. So things are
Hmm.
good, things are great. And I get the idea of like, I'm gonna get a doctorate because like I think that the end of the career, like I want to sunset my career in academia. So I'm gonna get a doctorate so that I can be there and like I have like my union card, if you will. So now
Hmm.
I'm working at Donor, teaching at Michigan, giving talks, working on my doctorate. And in the summer, I
Yeah.
go to Boston and teach at BU. Like that's my life. Like that's what I'm doing. And it's all good. It's great. It's great. We had our second daughter, Ivy, in 2019 that summer.
Hmm.
And I get the notion that I don't want to go in the office anymore. I'm done with that. Like I want to get my paycheck.
Right. 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 I'm just
And like I'd
I'm working
already
for
wasn't
myself.
like I wasn't around that much anyway. I just like I
Hmm.
don't want any expectation. I don't want any passive aggressiveness. Like I just want it to be
Right.
known that Marcus is going to come and go, and if he's here, that's a blessing. If not,
Right.
he's doing his
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So fall of 2019. So we have Ivy, and I'm like, I want more of this. Like I want more of my baby girl, and I want more of my family, and it's something matters.
Hmm.
So I go in and talk to Donor, the agency I was at, and I'm like I'm trying to spend less time in the office. They're like, oh, we're trying to get you to spend more time here. And it's just an
Hmm.
impasse. Like what I want
Right.
is not what they want. And they're like, this
Yeah.
isn't going to work. I'm like, you're right, this isn't going to work. So like just stay on through the end of the first quarter. And then we'll just call it quits. And in my mind, I'm like, bet 6 months free pay. Great, cool. Right.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
start working on the speaking career. I can start working on creating content. I can start working on, doing consultancy while I'm teaching full time and finishing up my doctorate. That's the plan.
Hmm.
Then March 2020, there's a pandemic. There's a pandemic.
Yeah, that's
This can't be life, dude. Like, how is this happening to
right,
me,
right
dude?
when you
Nine
transition to
11,
every
the
single thing.
recession, pandemic. Like, every time I go to
Wow.
school, something like ridiculous happens. I'm not going back to
Yeah.
school, so everybody can relax.
Right.
Good. I'm like, yo, this cannot be happening. And I'm like, I just like said goodbye to a really good salary to do this thing that is totally dried up. There's no talks, there's no consultancies.
Right.
And I'm like, I was telling my wife, cancel every subscription we have, unplug stuff. Like we are hunkering down. Like
Right,
we are
right,
eating
yeah.
ramen noodles for dinner. We're eating
Yeah.
frosted flake. We eating like frosty oats for dinner. Like that. That's where we are in life. I'm like really concerned. I'm like
Yeah,
really
yeah.
concerned. Like really concerned, dude. I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna make this happen.
Yeah, especially with the added pressure because you're not 27 by yourself, in an apartment anymore. This is the weight of your entire family, that you have to provide for. That's a different, it's just a different
Sole
mindset.
financial provider for the family.
Yeah.
And like if I mess that up, then I failed my family.
Yeah.
So like I'm legit concerned. I'm faithful. Like I'm prayerful
Right,
about
right,
it,
right.
but I'm a little concerned. So I thankfully I was able to get in full time at Ross. So I got benefits. So
Mhm.
something happens, like at least my kids can go to the hospital and whatever. They got
Right,
that. And
right,
it's
right.
like it's a salary. Don't even like it is a good salary.
Mhm.
But it's not what I was making. It was
Right,
nowhere.
it's
It was
not.
like
Not what you were used to and comfortable
a
with at that time.
fourth of
Yeah.
what I was used to, dude. And I'm like it's gonna have to make it work.
Right.
Thankfully, speaking gigs started happening remotely. So I'm giving speaking gigs now while teaching. Finished up my doctorate. Great. I get a call from Be the Match, which is the National Bone Marrow Donors Registry. And they asked me to work on a project, not a consultancy. I started consulting
Yeah.
with Peloton. And I'm like, God, look at you.
This
Look, Trey, look at Trey. Like, what are we doing? I'm telling you, man.
closing
Like,
one door, opening 12 more.
yo,
That's crazy.
and I'm doing it all on my terms. Like, again, it's like I'm still, and I mean, I was a little nervous, like when the next school going to drop, but it was good. And I hate saying, yeah, I feel guilty saying that because of just how much we lost because of the pandemic, but I gained so much. Like,
Right.
I spent
Yeah.
so much time with my girls. I recorded an album with my
Dude,
eldest
which
daughter.
is insane.
Yeah, like,
Insane.
it's like, man,
Will
I'm
be a
like,
memory forever.
I'm doing it, man. Like, I'm like, this is like, we're thriving right now. We're not just doing good. We are thriving in
Right.
COVID. And it's like awesome. And I can manage it. I started teaching at Harvard. That's awesome.
Oh, wow,
Like,
I didn't even know that. That's
yeah, so I'm teaching at Harvard, and this is the guy who barely graduated undergrad. I'm
right.
now instructor at Harvard while teaching in Michigan, doing summers at BU remotely. It's like it's happening. It's making content. It's all happening. And then that summer, this is all 2020, I get the call saying that I'm being inducted to the Advertising Hall of Achievement.
That,
And
yeah.
I could just cry. It's just I didn't even know the words, man. It's just all this stuff is happening. And I'm like, dude, I don't deserve any of this. Like, this is nothing about me that made me any special than anybody else who were trying to pursue something. Right.
Right,
Like,
right,
I just
yeah.
had people who poured into me and God who looked out for me. Like, it, like, and like, I did work, I worked hard, but there are a lot of people who
Right.
work hard, right? I'm
Yeah,
working
yeah.
hard just preparing for it, but the opportunity has to present itself and you be ready for it. And so it's just all a blessing, man. Like, it's all a blessing. And I'm like, it doesn't get any better than this, right? It doesn't get any better
Right.
than this.
Right.
I got a phone call. I get a phone call. It was a text message. I didn't get a text message at the
Right.
end of the year, November. It was right before Thanksgiving, from a guy who used to work at me at translation. Says, would you ever think about going back to an advertising agency? And I was like, no, I don't think so,
Yeah,
man. I think I'm
it's not in the
good.
cards.
Now, I'm doing really well right now.
Right.
I'm good. And he's like, would you like have a conversation with Wieden Kennedy? And I go, yeah,
Of
like, it's
course.
Wieden Kennedy. Like, you take that phone call. I mean, this is the most successful agency in the world. Like, this is the most, this is the coveted agency in the world. I'm like, yeah, totally. And I meet the guys, and I'm really hit it off with them. And I love talking to the guys. And I met with them more. I met with more and more people, and I get an offer to be the chief strategy officer in New York, to run strategy in New York.
Wow.
And they're like, like, are you open to moving back to New York? I'm like, nah, my family's here. My church is here. Like, I'm pretty much bolted here. And I was like, honestly, like, if I were next door, like, I'd still be in my house, or you'd be in your house right now. So, like, what does it even matter? On top of that, your clients, your biggest clients, are closer to me than they are to you. Like, Ford is 25 minutes down the road from me.
Right.
McDonald's, I'm closer to McDonald's than you are. It's in Chicago. Like, and they're like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And they're like, okay, now what about the teaching thing? Are you going to teach? And I'm like, oh, I got to teach. Like, that's
Right,
what I got to do both. I'm only as good as I am doing both. And they go, all right, cool. And now I'm like, I'm on the phone with the recruiter, like, all right, God, you're just showing out right now. Like, I'm literally like, I'm testifying on the phone.
There's no way they actually approve that.
Yo, I'm straight up like, I want to thank the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Like, I'm straight up testifying, like,
right.
This is more than I can even imagine happening, and it's happening. And I'm like, and I'm on the phone with your dad. I'm on the phone with my wife. I'm like,
right, yeah.
I'm like, pray. Like, I mean, I'm like negotiating all this stuff while it's happening while finishing my doctorate. And I noticed that, like, man, I think that I want to shoot my shot at Ross, because I'm feeling pretty brolic at this point. I'm in the lecturer position right now, but when I finish my doctorate, like, I should be a professor. Like, I should be at the professor level, clinical professor level. The pay jump is drastic, and plus there's so much more like credence and like that comes with the title of being professor as opposed to being lecturer.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna see if it's possible. So I talked to my department chair and yada yada. They're like, all right, we're gonna try it out. We're gonna see what's gonna work. And all these conversations, slow movement. So now I'm negotiating my salary and position at Wieden while negotiating Ross and finishing my doctorate and teaching a stupid load, right? Like, That's
Wow.
happening all at the same time in a matter of a
Mhm.
month, and it all just happens just
Okay.
like that. Yeah. So July 1st, I'm moving from lecturer of marketing to assistant clinical professor of marketing at the Ross School of Business. It's,
Wow.
dude, it's unbelievable. And it's better. I have it better than I ever could have imagined.
Right.
And this is, I mean, I like this is a long story, super long-winded story. You told me to go
No,
in,
yeah,
so
this is
I decided to
amazing.
go in.
That yeah.
But like what I can say in hindsight, it's always easier looking in hindsight,
Mhm.
is that I always knew what I wanted. That never
Mhm.
shifted. It may have changed. What I wanted may have changed, but
Mhm.
I was like myopically focused, like so unbelievably focused. It wasn't the only thing I did, but I got better at finding how these pieces work together as opposed to working separately. Like
Right. Mm.
music and then going
Yeah.
to substitute teach, like that was not a thing, right? But teaching and doing what I'm teaching and studying what I'm doing, oh
Right.
man, that works well. Not only that, it creates for a portfolio career. And people go
Yeah.
like, how do you do all that? And I go, well, I'm kind of doing the same thing in three different places. Not
Right.
only that, all the guys who are like crushing it in life, like the Rocks of the world and Kevin Hart, these dudes do a million different things.
Right.
Why can't I do
They're
that?
not set on. Yeah.
They just grind. They just work.
Right.
They're talented, but their work ethic is stupid. And I'm
Right. They're
like,
not sitting around
my
there
work
all
ethic
day.
has been that way since I've been in undergrad. So why not put that work ethic to work? Yeah, man.
That
That's the it.
wow. Yeah, I know I wasn't even chiming in that much. I just man, I just wanted to hear the story. Like that's
That's the
I'm
it.
like, "Oh, just take the podcast." Like this is
But
man, I just I mean, there's so many moments in there where even I mean, I know where you're at now. You know,
yeah,
I know, you know, more than anybody, you know, where you're at now than anybody listening. But I'm like, at these moments that you're talking about in the story, I'm like, okay, well, that's the moment. You know, you're gonna have a successful music career. What happened? What could possibly happen? You
yeah,
know, you mentioned how all three of those things affected your career. Just right when you were about to make a turning point, every time in your career, there was something that prohibited it
yeah,
and made it seem impossible. And I that's a crazy level of dedication. Like there's no other way in putting that because for with things that are just regular in life, it's already hard enough.
yeah,
You know, you had said you were, you know, 27 going back to going back to college, get your MBA, $100,000 in debt. It's like like you said, you have to know what you want to do. You have to know what it is that you want in terms in order to succeed in that fashion. And I think it's just an amazing perspective to get somebody that is quote unquote already through it. You know, the stuff that my generation is trying to figure out, the stuff that I am personally trying to figure out, to see somebody on the other side of that that has been successful in their endeavors and has went through struggles that I can't even imagine right now at this point
yeah,
is yeah, for just lack of a better term, just great. Just, you know, great to see, great to hear. And I think that, you know, in the email that I sent you earlier, just I think that the people that watch this podcast and that are dedicated to content, as well as myself, just have a lot to gain from the story that you told. Um, and the you know the hardships that you struggled. But I do want to because I'm curious about this for myself specifically, but also I think it will help those listening. In terms of you mentioned a lot of points where things seemed like they were working out, and then you know it just didn't go through. It all
yeah.
fell through. What it was there one moment that you feel made you without a doubt, um, believe that you would become something something great? Like, was there a moment that you knew if I just continue keep doing this with these opportunities, there's nothing short of greatness. Obviously you probably didn't have this vision of who you are now, but
Yeah.
was there a moment that you felt I I I am Marcus. I can do this. I am good at these things. If I continue to pursue these things, I will make a name for myself. I will become successful in whatever it is.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if there was a moment in time. I'm trying to think like, if there was an inflection point in time. I think
Mhm.
there was a window where
Okay.
I was like, I think I'm kind of good at this.
Mhm.
And I think it was right when I came to donor. Because like I left translation, translation, like there's one superstar at translation. His name is Steve Stout. And he's
Mhm.
amazing. And I
Right,
had a
right.
chance to work with him for 4 years, like develop a
Yeah.
very close relationship for 4 years and watch this man be dope. And in the agency, everyone was like the people I worked closely with were very, 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 very talented. So like I was on a roster of like really talented people, but like I wasn't
Yeah.
like Jordan on a team, but I was still on Scotty, right?
Right, right,
Um,
right.
and again, it's almost like with Beyonce, like I didn't know how good I was. The translation, I feel like I was pretty good, but I also was
Mhm.
like, I got all these great people around me. When I came to donor, like it was very much like I was kind of just doing my own thing.
Right.
And I had a pretty good point of view on the world based on my practice and what I'd been investing myself in from an academic perspective, from a theory perspective.
Mm.
And my first year and a half at donor, dude, I was winning business like nobody's business. Like, yo, like
Yeah.
I won Purell, I won DiGiorno's, California Pizza Kitchen. What else did we win that first year? Nescafe. Like, and like I was like running the strategy
Just
for it.
right,
Dude,
one
like
after the other.
that's happening. And then like people are asking me to give talks, and I'm giving talks. It's my first time really doing that. And
Right.
people are like, yo, like that was very helpful. And I'm like, oh wow, like
Alright.
and I
I
love
actually
doing it.
said
Like,
something, of
and
value.
then I'm teaching at Ross at this point, one class, and people are like, yo, you really changed my life. And I'm like,
Mm,
dude, like
that's gotta be yeah.
I got an impact. Like I'm making an impact. And for
Mhm.
me, I'm like, I'm just Marcus, man. I'm like, I don't know, like I don't see it as anything like special about me, right? But I feel like maybe I'm a vehicle for this. And and if God opens the doors, then like I'm gonna
Right.
walk in, right? Because
Right,
like
yeah.
if it's for me, it's for me. If it's not, close them up, right? And like the doors are opening and they seem to be, the signals seem to be positive. So I just kept doing it and invested myself in doing it. I mean, and that's probably the thing that I probably understated, but I can't overstate it. Man, like just
Mhm.
that line that Kanye says, what you know about making 5 beats a day for 3 summers? That's a different world like 3 summers. I deserve to do these numbers. Like, yo, I focused grind, like yo, grind, like like shooting 1,000 shots a day, like that, like
Right.
that's what I was on. So like when I gave a talk, I never gave the same talk twice. Still to this day, I never do. Like I'm always making it better, tightening up, tightening up, tightening up, always tightening up, tightening up, tightening up. Like I when I started like doing more speaking, like I was like, what am I doing with my hands? What do I do with my body? Like I was like very intentional.
Right.
And like I want to be, if I'm gonna do this, I want to be the absolute best at it. So then when the opportunity presents itself, I'll be ready for it. And I feel like
Yeah.
that window when I moved to Detroit, it was like a good year, for like 2015, 2016.
Mhm.
Like I started winning business. I started sitting on stages, like giving talks that were like turning into business.
Right.
Like Potbelly became a client because they saw me give a talk somewhere. I was like, I like that. Like, can you come help my company? I'm like, yo, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then I get, the at age 40 to 40 happens, never got any accolades for my work ever before. And it's like
Right.
to get at this level,
Yeah.
wow. It's like, and then I did a TED talk. It's like,
Yeah,
and
I
then
was gonna
I gave
mention that,
a talk
yeah.
at Cannes Lions Festival in Cannes, France. Like it's like it's happening. And like that year, I felt like I think I can do this. And we were talking to Alex, my wife, like I think
Yeah.
I can do this. Like, I really think that if I lean into this, I think I got something here. I don't know what it is just yet, but I think I got something. And you know, I what it became is the perfect alchemy of everything that I've ever done. And that's why it's so much easier to look out the rearview mirror. You'll realize this when you get older.
Mhm.
Man, it's like life makes so much sense, more sense look out the rearview mirror than it does looking forward.
Right.
Like, I studied materials engineering and I focused on polymers, like carbon chains, carbon
Mhm.
networks. My entire foundation for how I think about marketing is built on cultural networks. Everything I do is
Same. Right.
all about networks. Like my doctoral studies, I did network theory analysis, did network analysis to get my data,
Wow.
like networks. And while I think about networks of people today, a lot of that is based upon my foundational understanding of network carbon chains that make plastics, right?
Mm.
What I love about music at its core is that it connected people. Right? You love Frank Ocean, like I love Frank Ocean. We could just sort of spaz out about,
Right.
about self control. Like, man, that I know you gotta
Right,
leave me.
right.
Like, oh man, it makes you feel so good. Like I love that. That's what I loved about making music, right? And as a marketer, I'm just connecting people to these cultural things. Like that's what I'm doing on
Wow.
stage or even in the classroom. Like it's a performance in a lot of ways. Like I'm thinking about my body. I'm thinking about how do you respond to the audience. It's like being on stage in a lot of ways, right? And as a
Mhm.
marketer, like I get to touch more people as a marketer than I ever thought I could as a musician.
Mm.
Dude, like
Wow.
Cliff Paul launched in December 2012. I teach that case study today, and students are like, that is like one of my favorite campaigns ever. I cannot believe you did that. People rock Brooklyn Nets gear. And I'm like, that's me. I did that.
Right.
It's me. I did that. Like, and Made in America Music Festival, this is its ninth year. It's happening again this year. It didn't happen last year because of COVID, but it's happening
Mhm.
this year. Dude, that's a festival that happens. 90,000 people go to Philadelphia for 2 days, just like they do Coachella and Lollapalooza and Bonnaroo. Like I created that with other people, but like I was,
Right, yeah, of course.
dude, it's
That's
a
yeah,
greater impact than I ever could have made as a musician.
yeah. Man, that's
Life comes in different shapes and sizes, and like you never know what the modality would be.
mhm.
But what you do is just invest yourself into what you can do really well and where you feel like you can make an impact. Try to pull different things together that like help round it out, and then just be really prayerful. And that is the recipe, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, that's I think one key takeaway there is, obviously you talk about impacting people, but when you told me, or when you spoke about how that student came up to you and said, hey, this changed my life. Like this, what you are teaching, what the things that you are putting out into this world has changed my perspective on how I'm going to like traject my life. That is something that I feel cannot be replaced by anything. There is, even with the work that I do on YouTube and just this podcast that people, there might be only 3 to 4 people that listen to the whole podcast every single time, right? Those people that message me and are like, "Yo, that piece that you said about this, this topic," or, when you were talking about just keeping it real and how you haven't been productive and you're still able to get this stuff out and, you're just you're rolling with the punches, that really spoke to me. I'm really trying to do X, Y, and Z, and we'll have a conversation about whatever they're trying to do in their life. And those moments are what inspires me to continue to make, the content that I make, whether it's for 100,000 people or the 10 people that watch every week. Like that is it's huge, man.
It's the most fulfilling, rewarding thing you can ever do. An old Negro spiritual that it says, if I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living will not be in vain. And
Mm,
I think that, like, if anyone ever asks me sort of like, what is your why? What is your conviction? Why are you on this earth? I'm a firm believer that we as a species are here to serve. We serve God and serve each other. Like that's what we're here to do. And the
Mhm.
way I serve is by helping people realize their best self, their greatest potential. Right.
Yeah.
And if it's like, yo, if I'm able to do it, you can do it, because I was the worst student. And I look back at my music now, I'm like, my music wasn't that good. It was okay. It was
Right,
okay,
right,
but it
right.
was not killing the game, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm a subpar singer, not a great instrumentalist, right? Like, but well, I have gifts. That's not where God wanted me to be,
Mhm.
and the impact that I have here, it's something that I don't take for granted. And I consider it a blessing.
That's just going back to it, just an incredible story. And before we wrap it up, I just want to, reiterate, I appreciate you taking the time to come on this podcast. I know, like you've already explained to the people, the audience listening, you're dealing with a whole bunch of things, and obviously you're enjoying every second of it. But I get it that this, hours of the day to have you dedicate 2 hours to this, I really appreciate that. And I want you to know, and I know I say it, over and over and over again, but I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing that story with me personally, because I haven't heard the full thing, but also the audience. And I think that it will, you know, reiterating again, I think it just has so much, people can gain so much from it.
Yeah.
And, you know, uh, yeah, they can just gain so much from it and be able to might get them over the troubles that they're having right now in their journey of whatever it is that they are trying to do, and what they're known for. So, this is actually kind of iconic because you are the one that came up with this segment or gave me the idea to start doing this segment with the cam cheat code. So this is come full circle in episode
That's
17.
what's
But
up.
so, for the cam cheat code of the week, obviously you always know that I have my guests give some advice to the audience. So, the prompt is very open for you, but what is some advice being in the generation before me
Mhm,
that you feel um will stand the test of time through my generation um
mhm.
that you can give to the audience?
Um, I think it's pretty simple, and it's probably thought of as cliche, but
Mhm.
man, there are no elevators to life. They're only the stairs, man. Like if you want a
Mhm.
six pack, do crunches. Period. Like it's just that. Like yo,
Yeah.
you want a six pack B, stop eating burgers and fries and do crunches. And I think that like it's easy for us to see people get on and be like, man, I want that so badly. And it's like, people like overnight successes. Like, but people are 10-year overnight successes.
Right.
Like they're doing all the work. They've been in the gym hitting the weights, man, for years before
Mhm.
things pop off. Right. And so you got to be patient. You got to be patient. Go fan to fan, one fan to another,
Right.
go door to door. And the thing is, you get better. Like you get better when you have the big stage because you've been
Mhm.
practicing, you've been hitting the weights, you've been, the content you created 2 years ago probably looks like crap compared to what you do now.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
Definitely.
It should. If it doesn't, then something's wrong, right?
Right.
You should be getting better, right? But you got to dedicate yourself to the craft. Dedicate yourself to the craft and put yourself in positions where opportunities might fall in your lap, right? And if you're of faith, keep the prayers up. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, stay in the gym.
Man, I think that's a huge point that I don't know which podcast I talked about that point on, but just the, bringing up just something that's central to my audience in terms of Ninja's success. People were all up in arms like, this guy is just coming out anywhere. He wasn't really that good, or obviously the things that he did were great, but they're like, why is it this guy? How
Yeah,
how did he become this overnight success? Anybody could have, he just knew about this game of Fortnite first. So that's
right.
why he blew up. and it's like people didn't know that this man was streaming for 7 years,
That's right.
with no viewers, was
That's right.
competing in tournaments to just live life because he would have to win tournaments to live for the next month, in an
Right.
apartment and pay for food. And yeah, that's just a great point um in saying that you don't really know what other people are doing before they actually come into the limelight and you see the success. You don't know how many times they've been put down or all the things that they have had to go through. And perfect example with you, people wouldn't see that at first glance and know that these world catastrophes were happening when you're trying to jumpstart each section of your career, and
Yeah.
you're still able to pull um, what you have off. So that's crazy. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up the podcast there. I always like to say let you give a little shout out to your socials and so where can the people find you?
Yeah, everything's at Mark to the C, MarkTothec, marktothec.com. That's where I be. Um, yeah, man. Yo, thanks for this opportunity. Seriously,
Yeah,
I'm
problem.
unbelievably proud of you. And I try to pour into you like so many people poured into me. I feel like
Mhm.
it's my reasonable service, right? It's not just because you're family, because you are obviously, but
Mhm.
because I believe in you, and you need people like that to like your dad was for me. Like you need people to be
Right,
like
right.
to keep you in check, but also to push you and make
Yeah.
sure you got someone behind you when things seem to be falling over.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Of course, the links will be in the description. For those, if I don't put it up on the screen, it'll be in the description. You can easily find him. And yeah, if this is, I don't usually say this, but if you could just share this podcast, that would mean the world to me. And I think it would mean the world to other people, the people that see it, just to get a different perspective that they might not have been thinking, especially an older perspective. Our generation consumes a lot of content from our generation. We're consuming a lot of content from the same people that our same age. And so to hear this perspective, I think will do people wonders. So if you could share the podcast, one person, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, one person for me. If you can do that, I appreciate it. And also hit the like button for sure. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Cam Chronicles. The longest and by far, definitely, I think probably my best podcast yet in terms of not because of who the guest is, but just because of in terms of the value, the story, and what can be gained. So again, I appreciate it, Uncle Marcus, and that's gonna be a wrap. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.